I heard 3 words whispered behind my back, and they shattered 20 years of marriage. It happened at my own anniversary party, with a room full of people who thought they knew us, and the woman who whispered them was my wife's best friend. Folks, Uncle Mickle here. I've carried this one for a long time. What I'm about to tell you isn't pretty, but it's real. And if you've ever trusted someone with your whole life, you'll understand why my hands still shake when I think about that night. Before I get into this, do me a favor and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, and what time it is right now. And if stories like mine hit you where it hurts, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Helps Uncle Mickle keep bringing you the truth nobody else wants to talk about. Now let me take you back. It was late summer, one of those evenings where the heat still clings to your skin even after the sun dips low. Our backyard was strung with warm yellow lights, the kind my wife loved because they made everything feel softer than it really was. We were celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. 20 years. 2 decades of shared bills, shared beds, shared grief, shared victories. At least, that's what I believed then. There were about 30 people there. Family, old friends, neighbors who'd watched our kids grow up. Laughter floated over the lawn, mixed with the clink of glasses and the smell of grilled meat. Somebody had put on an old playlist from the early 2000s, songs that made people smile without thinking too hard about why. I remember standing near the cooler, holding a drink I didn't really want, watching my wife move through the crowd. Sarah. She looked beautiful that night. Not flashy, just familiar, comfortable in the way only someone who's shared your life can be. She laughed easily, touched people's arms when she spoke, the same way she always had. That's when Jennifer leaned in. Jennifer was Sarah's best friend. They'd known each other since college. She'd been in our wedding photos, held our first child before anyone else. She was family, as far as I was concerned. The kind of person you never think twice about having in your home. I didn't even realize she was behind me at first. I just felt the shift in the air, that instinctive sense you get when someone steps too close. She leaned toward Sarah, her voice low, meant to be private. But I heard it, clear as day. "You don't have much time left," Jennifer whispered. Sarah stiffened. It was subtle, just a fraction of a second. But after 20 years with someone, you learn their body language the way sailors learn the sea. I saw her shoulders tense. I saw her smile falter before she pulled it back into place. My blood ran cold. Jennifer noticed me then. Our eyes met for half a heartbeat. Something flashed across her face. Surprise, maybe fear, before she straightened up and took a step back, like nothing had happened. I stood there frozen, the sounds of the party suddenly dull and far away. Laughter echoed like it was coming from another house, another life. The drink in my hand felt heavier than it should have. "You okay?" someone asked nearby. I nodded. Of course I did. That's what men like me do. We nod. We swallow. We tell ourselves we misheard. But deep down, something had cracked. Because nobody says words like that at an anniversary party unless there's something rotten hiding underneath the celebration. And standing there under those pretty lights, watching my wife laugh again like nothing was wrong, I realized this night wasn't a milestone. It was a warning, and I had no idea how bad things were about to get. After Jennifer's whisper, I tried to do what I'd done my whole adult life when something didn't sit right. I tried to make it make sense. Maybe she meant something harmless. Maybe she was talking about the cake getting warm, or the neighbors needing to go home early, or some inside joke Sarah and Jennifer had going back 20 years. People say odd things at parties. People drink. People get sloppy. But I kept seeing it. Sarah's shoulders tightening like she'd been touched by a cold hand. So I did what a husband does when he's proud of his marriage. I put my face back on. I smiled. I walked around, shook hands, asked folks if they'd eaten, if they'd seen the photo table. I laughed at stories I'd heard 100 times. And all the while, that whisper kept crawling up the back of my neck. Sarah and I had what most people would have called a steady life. Not flashy, not perfect, but steady. We lived in a modest 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood where kids still rode bikes in the street and folks waved from their porches. I worked as a service manager at a heating and cooling company, long hours, steady pay. The kind of job where you learn to fix problems before they turn into disasters. Sarah worked part-time at a dental office for years, then shifted to helping at the church office once the kids got older. She liked being needed. She liked being the glue. We had 2 kids, Caleb and Emma. Caleb was already out of the house by then, living in a small apartment across town, working his first real job, and still acting like adulthood was something he could outsmart. Emma was 16, all attitude and earbuds, halfway between needing her mother and pretending she didn't. Our marriage, it had seasons, like anything. There were times we were close, and times we moved around each other like furniture. We fought about money, about parenting, about the way I left my boots by the door, and the way she could turn quiet into a weapon. But we always came back. We had routines that felt like anchors. Sunday morning coffee in the kitchen, Sarah in an oversized sweatshirt, me flipping through the news on my phone while she told me what she dreamed about. Friday night takeout, when we were too tired to cook. The annual road trip to the lake cabin with my brother's family, where Sarah always insisted on packing enough snacks to survive the apocalypse. There was comfort in that rhythm, and I trusted it. Maybe that's the part that hurts the most. Looking back, I trusted the life we built the way you trust gravity. I never thought I'd wake up and discover it could just stop working. Sarah and Jennifer were a big part of that trusted world. 2. Jennifer had always been around. Birthdays, holidays, graduations. The kind of friend who knew where the extra napkins were kept without asking. She'd show up with a bottle of wine, make herself useful, crack jokes, then disappear before anyone had to ask her to help clean up. Sarah loved her like a sister, and I'll admit this, there were times I was grateful for Jennifer. When Sarah was stressed, Jennifer could calm her down. When Sarah felt insecure, Jennifer would hype her up. When Sarah and I had rough patches, Jennifer would play referee, sometimes with a little too much confidence for my liking. But I never saw her as a threat. I never saw any of it as a threat. That anniversary party was supposed to be a celebration of survival. 20 years means you've endured things together, job scares, sick parents, a miscarriage we didn't talk about much, and the slow, quiet changes that happen when people grow older and tired in different ways. Sarah had insisted on throwing the party. She'd planned it for weeks, down to the tablecloths and the playlist and the little photo board showing us through the years. She even made me try on my old suit jacket, laughing when it didn't fit the way it used to. "Time's undefeated," she'd said, teasing me. I remember she said that with a smile. But after Jennifer's whisper, those words landed different, because now time didn't sound like some joke about belly weight and gray hair. It sounded like a countdown. And the more I watched Sarah that night, the way she moved through the crowd, the way her laugh came a beat late, the way she kept checking her phone like she was waiting for something, the more I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not fear, just this quiet, creeping sense that the ground under my feet wasn't as solid as I believed. And right as I started to convince myself I was overthinking it, I noticed something small. When I walked up behind Sarah and slid my hand gently around her waist, the way I'd done 1,000 times. She flinched. Just barely. But she flinched all the same. And that was the first time I thought, oh no, something's already broken. The party wound down the way all good gatherings do, slowly, reluctantly, with people hugging goodbye and promising to do this again soon, even though everyone knows how rarely that happens. By the time the last car pulled away and the backyard went quiet, it was close to midnight. Sarah and I stood in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the loudest sound in the house. Empty plates were stacked in the sink. Half-melted ice sat in the cooler by the door. The lights still glowed outside, casting soft shadows through the window like nothing bad had ever happened under them. I watched Sarah wipe down the counter. She didn't look at me. "You tired?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Just a long day," she said, too quickly, like she'd practiced a line. I nodded and started gathering trash, giving her space. After 20 years, you learn when to press and when to wait. I told myself this was a wait moment, but when we finally went upstairs, that uneasy feeling followed me. Sarah changed in the bathroom instead of the bedroom, which was unusual. She used to change right in front of me. No big deal, tossing clothes on the chair, complaining about her back. That night, she closed the door. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slow circles. When she came out, she slipped under the covers without a word and turned onto her side, facing away from me. I told myself she was exhausted, but sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, I woke up early, the way I always did, habit from years of early shifts. I went downstairs, made coffee, and sat at the table watching the sun creep through the window. Sarah came down about half an hour later, already dressed, phone in her hand. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she replied, eyes still on the screen. She poured coffee but didn't sit. Took a sip. Checked her phone again. "Everything okay?" I asked. She hesitated, just long enough to notice. "Yeah," she said. "Just Jennifer. She's dealing with some stuff." There it was. Jennifer's name landed between us like a dropped plate. I kept my tone neutral. "She all right?" Sarah shrugged. "She's dramatic. You know that." I didn't know that. Or at least I thought I did. Sarah grabbed her purse and kissed me on the cheek, already halfway out the door. "I've got to run some errands. I'll be back later." The door closed behind her before I could respond. I sat there with my coffee going cold, replaying the way she'd said Jennifer's name. Too casual. Too quick. Like she wanted to move past it before I could ask more. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not panic. Not suspicion, exactly. Awareness. That day at work, I found it hard to focus. I kept replaying the whisper, the flinch, the closed bathroom door. Each thing on its own was nothing. Together, they started forming a shape I didn't want to name. I've spent my career troubleshooting systems, furnaces, AC units, ventilation. You learn that problems don't usually announce themselves with alarms. They show up as small irregularities. A noise that shouldn't be there. A temperature that's just a little off. Ignore them long enough, and you're looking at a full system failure. That afternoon, I came home early. Not because I planned to catch anyone doing anything wrong. I just needed to see my house when it was quiet, to remind myself that this was my life, my reality. Sarah wasn't home yet. Her car was gone. So was her laptop, which she usually left on the desk. But her tablet was still there, sitting on the kitchen counter, face down. I didn't touch it at first. I walked around the house instead, straightened a pillow, checked the mail, did all the things a man does when he's avoiding the one thing he knows he's about to do. Finally, I picked it up. The screen lit up. A message notification was visible on the lock screen. Just a preview. One line. "I told you we don't have much time. You need to decide." My heart started pounding. The sender wasn't saved under a name, just a number. I stood there, tablet in my hands, feeling like I'd crossed some invisible line already, even though I hadn't unlocked a thing. That message could have meant anything. Work stress, family drama, a friend in trouble. But my gut didn't believe that. I set the tablet back down like it was hot. When Sarah came home later that evening, she seemed lighter, almost relieved. She hummed while she cooked dinner, chatted about nothing in particular. It was like she'd stepped back into her role, the way an actor returns to the stage after a missed cue. And that scared me more than silence would have, because it told me this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a performance. And somewhere behind that smile, my wife was making a decision I wasn't part of. I just didn't know yet how deep the knife was going to cut. I didn't confront Sarah that night. That surprises people when I tell them this story. They expect anger, raised voices, a dramatic showdown in the kitchen under fluorescent lights. But that wasn't me. Not then. What I felt was something colder. I needed to know the truth before I spoke a single word. Because once words leave your mouth, there's no putting them back. And I had a sinking feeling that whatever I was about to uncover would change everything we'd ever said to each other. So I watched. I watched the way Sarah moved through the house over the next few days, like someone living in a space that was already half gone. She laughed with Emma, asked about school, folded laundry. But her mind was elsewhere. You could see it in the pauses, in the way she'd stare out the window just a little too long. Her phone never left her side. She used to leave it on the counter, plugged in overnight, volume on. Now it stayed face down, on silent. Even in the shower, she'd bring it into the bathroom and set it on the sink like it was fragile. And Jennifer's name kept coming up. Not constantly. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough to feel intentional. Jennifer called. Jennifer needs help. Jennifer's going through a lot right now. Always vague. Always deflected. 3 days after the party, Sarah went to bed early, claiming a headache. I stayed up, pretending to watch television, waiting until the house settled into that deep quiet that comes after midnight. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I picked up her phone. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around it and started pulling. I told myself I was just checking to ease my mind, that if there was nothing there, I'd put it back and never think about it again. I unlocked it. The first thing I saw was a thread of messages that made my stomach drop. Not Jennifer. A man named Michael. The conversation didn't start with anything explicit. That almost made it worse. Inside jokes. Casual check-ins. Messages spaced out carefully, like they were trying not to leave a trail. Then I scrolled. The tone changed. I miss you. Last night was hard. We have to be careful. I don't know how much longer I can do this. My vision blurred. I sat down on the edge of the couch, phone shaking slightly in my hand. Each message felt like a small punch, not enough to knock me out, but enough to leave bruises everywhere. There were gaps in the conversation, whole days missing, deleted messages. That told me more than anything else could have. This wasn't new. This was managed. I kept scrolling, hating myself and unable to stop. Then I saw it. A message from Jennifer. I covered for you again. But you need to figure this out. Mickle deserves to know. Or you need to end it. This limbo is going to destroy everyone. Covered for you. I felt something inside me collapse. Jennifer wasn't warning Sarah about time running out because of some outside pressure. She wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't talking about a cake melting or a party ending. She was talking about me. About how long Sarah could keep lying before everything blew up. I put the phone down slowly, like any sudden movement might shatter what little control I had left. My ears were ringing. My mouth felt dry. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I wanted to wake her up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand explanations that I already knew wouldn't make this hurt any less. But I didn't. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub with my head in my hands. 20 years. 20 years of believing I knew the woman sleeping in my bed. Images started flooding in: holidays, hospital visits, late-night talks, promises whispered in the dark. I questioned every memory, every smile, every time she'd said she was with Jennifer or running errands. I thought about Michael. I didn't know him, had never met him, but I hated him with a clarity that surprised me. Not just for the affair, but for how easily he fit into the spaces I'd assumed were solid. When I finally looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. Older, tired, eyes heavy with a kind of grief that doesn't have a funeral. I went back to bed and lay there, staring at the wall while Sarah slept beside me, breathing slow and even. She reached back at one point, her hand brushing my arm in her sleep. I didn't move. That was the moment the truth settled in, heavy and undeniable. My wife wasn't confused. She wasn't struggling. She was living a second life. And I was the only one in the house who didn't get a choice in it. By morning, the marriage I thought I had was already over. I just hadn't told anyone yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay there beside Sarah, listening to the quiet rhythm of her breathing, staring into the dark like it might offer answers if I stared long enough. Every so often, anger would flare, hot, sharp, demanding action. But just as quickly, it would fade into something heavier. Clarity. By sunrise, my heart felt bruised, but my mind was steady. And that's when I knew something important had changed. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was thinking. I got up before the alarm, showered, dressed, moved through the house like a guest. Sarah woke as I was tying my shoes. "Early?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Couldn't sleep," I said. That was true, just not for the reason she thought. At work, I went through the motions, signed off on jobs, answered calls, smiled when expected. But underneath it all, I was building a plan. Not a dramatic one, not some movie-style revenge, Just a way forward that didn't involve me losing my dignity. Because here's something life teaches you if you pay attention. When someone betrays you, they're already counting on your chaos, your outburst, your desperation, your willingness to look like the bad guy so they can feel justified. I wasn't going to give Sarah that. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat down with a legal pad and wrote things out. Not emotions. Facts. Timeline. Names. Patterns. I wrote down every late night, every sudden errand, every time Jennifer had been the excuse, every message I'd seen, every gap that told its own story. Then I wrote down what mattered. My kids. My home. My reputation. My peace. I realized something as I stared at that list. I wasn't afraid of losing Sarah the way I once would have been. I was afraid of losing myself trying to hold on to someone who'd already let go. That thought hurt, but it also grounded me. That evening, I cooked dinner. Sarah seemed surprised. She watched me move around the kitchen like she was seeing me for the first time. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know," I replied. I wanted to. We ate together, talked about Emma's school project, about Caleb's new job. Normal conversation. Painfully normal. At one point, Sarah reached for my hand. I let her. Not because I felt connected, but because I needed to see something. I needed to know whether she felt guilt, or comfort, or nothing at all. Her grip was loose. Absent. That told me everything. Later that night, when she went to shower, I didn't follow my old habits. I didn't pretend everything was fine. I didn't sit on the couch replaying memories. I opened my laptop. I started backing things up. Financial records, joint accounts, mortgage documents. Not because I planned to burn everything down, but because I needed to understand the structure before I touched a single beam. I also looked up Michael. It didn't take long. Middle management. Divorced. 2 kids who lived with their mother. That detail stuck with me longer than it should have. When Sarah came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, she noticed the laptop. "Working late?" she asked. "Just organizing," I said. She nodded, satisfied with that half-truth. That night, for the first time since the party, I slept. Not deeply, but enough. Because I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her in private, where she could cry, deflect, rewrite history. I wasn't going to beg for honesty from someone who'd already rehearsed lies. If the truth was coming out, it was coming out in the open. Controlled. Measured. Undeniable. Jennifer's whisper echoed in my head again. "You don't have much time left." She was right, but not in the way she thought. Because the clock wasn't ticking on my marriage. It was ticking on the lie. And when it finally ran out, I was going to be standing on solid ground, watching it collapse from a distance. I just needed the right moment to let it fall. The right moment came faster than I expected. 3 nights later, Sarah told me she was meeting Jennifer for dinner. She said it casually, like she always did, slipping her shoes on by the door, checking her reflection in the mirror. "I won't be late," she said. I nodded. "Drive safe." The second the door closed, I picked up my phone. I didn't call her. I called Jennifer. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Mickle." Her voice cracked. Just a little. "Hey," I said calmly. Too calmly. "We need to talk." Silence stretched between us. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "No," I said, "but it's about to be honest." I told her where to meet me. Neutral place. Public. No room for dramatics. She hesitated, then agreed. I arrived early. I chose a table by the window, ordered black coffee, and waited. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. That surprised me more than anything. When Jennifer walked in, she looked smaller than I remembered. Less confident. Her eyes darted around the room until they landed on me. She sat down slowly. "You weren't supposed to hear that," she said, before I could speak. "I heard enough," I replied. She swallowed. "I never wanted to hurt you." "That's funny," I said, "because you helped." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't move. "I thought I was protecting her," she said. "I thought if I gave her time." "Time to what?" I cut in. "Choose which life she wanted." Jennifer looked down. That was my answer. "I know about Michael. I said. I know you've been covering. I know how long it's been. She didn't deny it. Instead, she nodded. And in that moment, something shifted. The final piece clicked into place. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. You're going to text Sarah right now. You're going to tell her you told me everything. Jennifer's head snapped up. I can't. You can, I said. And you will. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she picked up her phone. Typed. Stopped. Typed again. Sent. Her hands were shaking now. She's going to panic, Jennifer whispered. Good, I said. I finished my coffee. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Sarah. I didn't answer. I stood up. Wait, Jennifer said. What are you going to do? I looked at her. Really looked at her. I'm going to end the lie, I said. You might want to think about what part you played in it. I left her there. When I got home, the house was quiet. Emma was at a friend's. The lights were off. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway yet. I sat at the kitchen table and waited. When she finally came in, she looked like someone who'd been running from something and realized it was faster than she was. Mickle, she said, voice trembling. We need to talk. I nodded. I know. She started crying immediately. Words tumbling out. Apologies. Explanations. Half-truths wrapped in emotion. I let her talk. Then I raised my hand. Stop, I said. She froze. I know everything, I continued. Names. Messages. How long? Who helped you lie? Her face went pale. I'm not here to yell, I said. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to tell you what's going to happen next. I stood up. We're telling the kids the truth, I said. Tomorrow. Together. No excuses. No blame shifting. She shook her head. Please. This is the last time I'll ask for honesty, I said. If you take that away too, I walk. Silence filled the room. For the first time in weeks, Sarah wasn't in control. I was. And as devastating as that moment was, there was something else underneath it. Relief. Because the lie had finally been dragged into the light, and it didn't survive the exposure. The morning after the truth came out felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. No shouting, no slammed doors, just the weight of reality settling into every corner of the house. Sarah and I sat at the kitchen table across from each other, untouched coffee growing cold between us. When Emma came down the stairs, still half asleep, we both looked up at her at the same time. That alone told her something was wrong. We told her the truth. Not details. Not names. Just the part that mattered. That her mother had broken a promise. That our marriage was ending. That none of it was her fault. Emma cried. Then she got angry. Then she went back upstairs and shut her door. I didn't chase her. I knew better. Kids need space to grieve, just like adults do. Caleb came over that afternoon. Sarah told him herself. I watched his face harden in a way that made my chest ache. He hugged me before he left. Didn't say much. He didn't need to. By that evening, Sarah packed a bag. I'll stay with Jennifer for a few days, she said, eyes red, voice small. I nodded. That's probably best. When the door closed behind her, the house felt hollow. Not empty. Hollow. Like something essential had been removed, and the structure hadn't figured out how to hold itself up yet. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. I went to work. Came home. Cooked simple meals. Took walks at night, just to remind myself the world still moved. Friends started calling, offering help in careful, uncertain tones. Word gets around faster than you think, even when you try to keep things private. I didn't correct rumors. I didn't defend myself. I didn't drag Sarah through the mud. I didn't need to. The truth has a way of standing on its own. A week later, Sarah and I sat down again. This time with paperwork. Calm voices. Clear boundaries. We talked about the house. The kids. The future. It was strange, negotiating the end of something that had once been my entire world. There were moments she cried. There were moments I almost did. But mostly, there was acceptance. She apologized again. More sincerely this time. I believed she was sorry for the pain. I just didn't believe she could undo it. And that mattered. Jennifer tried to call me once. I didn't answer. Some bridges don't need dramatic burnings. They just need to be left behind. As the weeks passed, I started to notice small changes in myself. I slept better, ate better, thought clearer. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was stability. And that counts for something. Emma came around slowly. Some days she talked. Some days she didn't. I let her lead. Caleb checked in often, offering help I didn't always accept. The house started to feel different. Not broken, just mine. One night, I sat alone in the backyard under those same string lights Sarah had loved. I turned them on, half expecting the memories to hurt more than they did. They didn't. They just felt like memories. I realized something then. The worst part wasn't losing my wife. It was losing the version of my life I thought was guaranteed. But guarantees are illusions. What's real is how you respond when the ground gives way. I didn't come out of this untouched. I carry scars, doubts, questions that may never have clean answers. But I also carried something new. Self-respect. And that turned out to be lighter than resentment. Easier to live with than bitterness. The marriage ended. But I didn't. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. I wasn't whole yet. But I was standing. And that meant the worst was finally behind me. Time has a way of changing the shape of pain. When you're in it, pain feels sharp and endless, like it's the only thing you'll ever feel again. But months pass. Seasons change. And slowly, that sharp edge dulls into something quieter. Something you can carry without it cutting you open every time you move. I'm not here to tell you everything turned out perfect. It didn't. There were lonely nights. There were moments I reached for my phone out of habit, only to remember there was no one on the other end who belonged to me anymore. There were holidays that felt thinner, like someone had taken a bite out of them and left the rest behind. But there were also mornings I woke up without a knot in my chest. There were evenings I sat in silence and realized the silence didn't scare me anymore. I learned something important in the aftermath of betrayal. Something nobody tells you when you're young and in love. Trust isn't just about believing someone won't hurt you. It's about believing you'll survive if they do. For a long time, I thought my marriage defined me. Thought being a husband was the foundation everything else rested on. When that foundation cracked, I was terrified there'd be nothing underneath. Turns out there was. There was a man who could stand on his own feet. A father who stayed steady for his kids. A human being who didn't have to beg for honesty to deserve it. I didn't win anything in this story. There were no trophies, no clean victories, just a quiet reclaiming of myself. And that's enough. If you're listening to this, and you're in the middle of something similar, if your gut is screaming while your heart is making excuses, hear me clearly. Pay attention to that voice inside you. Not the angry one, not the fearful one, the calm one, the one that notices patterns. The one that whispers truths before your mind is ready to hear them. That voice is trying to protect you. And if you've already been betrayed, if the truth has already landed and you're standing in the wreckage, wondering how you'll ever feel normal again, let me tell you this. You don't have to rush forgiveness. You don't have to rush healing. And you don't have to rush becoming okay for anyone else's comfort. Take your time. Build your footing. Choose dignity over drama, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over familiarity. Because losing someone who lies to you isn't losing everything. Sometimes, it's losing the weight that was keeping you from standing tall. So that's my story, folks. If it resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far Uncle Mickle's voice travels. And I'll leave you with this. The truth hurts, but living without it costs you far more.